It was unlike anything Elena had ever seen, not a cheap, mass-produced trinket, but a piece of exquisite craftsmanship, made of gleaming white gold, intricately engraved with a unique, stylized symbol, a soaring eagle with outstretched wings, its talons clutching a stylized S. The locket was clearly very old, yet its quality was undeniable. It felt cool and heavy in her palm, radiating an aura of quiet elegance that seemed utterly out of place with Lily's current circumstances. As midnight approached, Richard drove a nondescript rental car towards the abandoned warehouse, his hands gripping the steering wheel, his eyes scanning every shadow. The locket, clutched in his pocket, felt like a burning ember, a tangible link to the daughter he had mourned for so long. He was a billionaire, a man of immense power. But tonight, he was just a father, desperate and vulnerable, putting all his faith in the quiet conviction of a stranger. His fate and Lily's hung in the balance, poised on the edge of a terrifying, hopeful reunion. The silence of the towering corporate building at 2 a.m. was a deceptive thing. It wasn't truly quiet. It hummed with the low thrum of ventilation systems, the soft whir of servers, and the distant, rhythmic squeak of Elena's cleaning cart. For Elena, the night shift was a familiar embrace, a solitary ballet performed amidst the gleaming glass and polished chrome of a world far removed from her own. She moved with practiced efficiency. Her hands, though calloused from years of scrubbing, were gentle as she wiped down surfaces, emptied bins, and restored order to the chaos of the day. She was a ghost in the machine, unseen, unheard, a silent guardian of the pristine facade. The abandoned warehouse loomed, a skeletal silhouette against the inky blackness of midnight. Richard Sterling, a man accustomed to the opulent glow of city lights and the hushed efficiency of private jets, felt a primal fear knot in his stomach. He was alone, vulnerable, and placing his last, desperate hope in the hands of a stranger. The burner phone, clutched in his pocket, felt like a burning ember, a tangible link to the daughter he had mourned for 2 agonizing years. Tonight, however, the silence felt different. It was heavier, laced with an unsettling tension that pricked at the back of her neck. As she pushed her cart down a deserted corridor on the executive floor, a faint, almost imperceptible sound reached her ears. A whimper, so soft, so fragile, it could have been the building settling, or a trick of the air currents. But Elena, with her heightened senses honed by years of navigating the quiet night, knew better. It was human, and it was terrified. He drove the nondescript rental car slowly, his eyes scanning every shadow, every flicker of movement. The warehouse district was deserted, a desolate landscape of crumbling brick and broken windows. He pulled into the designated spot, a dark corner hidden from the main road, and cut the engine. The silence that followed was oppressive, broken only by the frantic pounding of his own heart. She stopped her cart, her heart quickening its pace. She listened, straining her ears. The whimper came again, a tiny, choked sound, seemingly emanating from a utility closet tucked away in a dimly lit alcove, a utility closet that should have been locked. He waited, every nerve ending screaming with anticipation. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Doubt, cold and insidious, began to creep in. Was this a trap? Another cruel hoax designed to exploit his grief. He gripped the locket in his pocket, its cool metal a fragile anchor to his hope. A cold dread seeped into Elena's bones. This wasn't right. Her instincts, honed by a life lived on the fringes, screamed at her to turn away, to ignore it, to protect her meager existence. But Elena's soul, despite the hardships it had endured, was woven with threads of an unwavering compassion. She couldn't ignore a plea for help, no matter how faint. Then, a faint rustle. A shadow detached itself from the deeper darkness near the warehouse entrance. A woman. She moved with a quiet caution, her figure small and unassuming. As she drew closer, Richard's breath hitched. She was holding a child's hand. Taking a deep, shaky breath, she slowly approached the closet door. It was slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness visible within. She pushed it open, her hand trembling. The sight that greeted her stole her breath, freezing her blood. Elena, huddled in the cramped, dusty space, amidst mops and buckets, was a child, a girl, no older than 7 or 8, her small frame curled into a fetal position, trembling violently. Her clothes were filthy, torn, and far too thin for the chill of the building. Her face, smudged with dirt and streaked with tears, was gaunt, her eyes wide with a terror that clawed at Elena's heart. They were eyes that had seen too much, far too early. She stepped into the faint glow of a distant street lamp, and Richard saw her clearly. She was dressed simply, her face tired but resolute, and beside her, clutching her hand, was a small figure, bundled in an oversized coat, a scarf pulled high over her face, obscuring all but her bright, curious eyes. Human trafficking! The word slammed into Elena's mind with brutal clarity. She had heard the whispers, seen the news reports, but never imagined it would manifest here, in this gleaming temple of corporate power. This child, small and vulnerable, was clearly a victim, hidden away like a discarded object. "Lily!" The girl flinched violently as Elena's shadow fell over her, whimpering again, trying to press herself deeper into the corner. A raw, guttural cry tore from Richard's throat. "Lily!" He stumbled out of the car, his legs suddenly weak, his vision blurred by tears. 2 years. 2 years of agonizing silence, of crushing despair, of a hollow ache in his soul. And now, she was here, real, tangible. "Hey! Hey!" Elena whispered, her voice soft, gentle, trying to convey safety. She knelt down, slowly, deliberately, making sure her movements were non-threatening. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. My name is Elena." Lily, startled by his sudden movement and his raw cry, flinched, instinctively pressing herself against Elena's leg. Elena tightened her grip on Lily's hand, her eyes darting nervously between Richard and the child. The girl's eyes, a startling shade of blue despite the grime, flickered to Elena's face, searching, assessing. Fear still dominated them, but a tiny spark of something else, curiosity, hope, began to glimmer. "Mr. Sterling," Elena said, her voice a low, urgent whisper. "Be careful. She's still very fragile, and we can't risk anyone else seeing her." Are you lost?" Elena asked, knowing the question was absurd, but needing to break through the wall of terror. Richard stopped, forcing himself to breathe, to regain some semblance of control. He knelt slowly, his eyes fixed on the small figure, tears streaming down his face. "Lily," he whispered again, his voice choked with emotion. "My little girl." The girl shook her head almost imperceptibly, her small body still trembling. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. She was clearly traumatized, perhaps even unable to speak. Lily slowly, hesitantly, peered out from behind Elena's coat. Her blue eyes, so familiar, so beloved, met his. There was fear there, still, but also a flicker of recognition, a hesitant curiosity. Elena's heart ached. This wasn't just a lost child. This was a child in grave danger. She knew the risks. Reporting it to building security would mean a massive investigation, questions, paperwork, and potentially her job. She was an immigrant, working under the radar, her life a precarious balance, but leaving this child here, abandoning her to whatever horrors awaited her, was simply not an option. Her moral compass, unwavering despite her own struggles, pointed her in one direction: protection. "Papa," she whispered, her voice a tiny, almost inaudible sound. "It's okay," Elena repeated, extending a hand slowly, palm open, inviting trust. "I'm going to help you. I'm going to get you out of here." The single word shattered Richard's composure. It was her voice, his Lily. He reached out a trembling hand, slowly, carefully, not wanting to frighten her. "Yes, sweetheart. Papa's here. Papa's here." The girl hesitated, her gaze fixed on Elena's outstretched hand. Then, with a sudden, desperate lunge, she reached out, her tiny fingers clutching Elena's hand with surprising strength. Her grip was cold, trembling, but it was a lifeline, a silent plea for rescue. Lily hesitated for another long moment, her gaze fixed on his outstretched hand. Then, with a sudden, heart-breaking sob, she launched herself forward, burying her small face in his chest. Richard wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close, holding her as if his life depended on it. Her small body was so thin, so fragile, but she was real. She was alive. He buried his face in her hair, inhaling the faint scent of soap and something else. something uniquely Lily, a scent he had thought he would never smell again. Tears, hot and uncontrollable, streamed down his face, soaking her hair. Elena's resolve solidified. This child, this fragile, terrified creature, was now her responsibility. She gently pulled the girl closer, wrapping an arm around her small, bony shoulders. The child was shockingly light, her ribs protruding beneath the thin fabric of her clothes. She was malnourished, neglected. "My Lily," he choked out, his voice thick with overwhelming relief and joy. "My precious girl, you're safe. You're finally safe." "What's your name, sweetheart?" Elena whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Elena stood back, a silent observer of the raw, powerful reunion. Her own eyes were wet with tears, a profound sense of accomplishment and relief washing over her. She had done it. She had brought Lily home. The girl looked up, her blue eyes wide. A faint, almost inaudible sound escaped her lips. "Lily," she whispered, the name of fragile breath. After a long, emotional moment, Richard finally pulled back, holding Lily at arm's length, his hands gently cupping her face, his eyes devouring every detail. He saw the gauntness, the shadows under her eyes, the lingering fear in their depths, but he also saw the spark, the light of his daughter's spirit, still shining through. "Lily," Elena held her tighter. "Okay, Lily, we're going to be quiet. Very, very quiet. And then we're going to leave this place." He then looked up at Elena, his face a mixture of profound gratitude and utter bewilderment. He stood, still holding Lily close. "You," he said, his voice husky with emotion. "You did this. You brought her back to me." He reached into his pocket, pulling out the locket. "This was in my journal. With your note, how did you get it there? Who are you?" Elena carefully, stealthily, guided Lily out of the closet. She kept the child hidden behind her cleaning cart, using the large, bulky equipment as a shield as they moved through the deserted corridors. Every shadow seemed to lengthen. Every distant sound seemed to amplify, turning the familiar building into a labyrinth of potential threats. She moved with a heightened sense of awareness, her eyes scanning every corner, her ears straining for any sign of movement, any hint that the traffickers might still be lurking. Elena met his gaze, her own expression calm, despite the whirlwind of emotions. "My name is Elena," she repeated, her voice quiet. "I'm a cleaner at the Sterling building. I found Lily hidden in a utility closet." She paused, then glanced around the deserted warehouse. "We need to talk, Mr. Sterling, about what she's been through, and about the people who took her. They are still out there, and they are looking for her. And for me?" They reached the service elevator, and Elena quickly pressed the button. The ascent was agonizingly slow, each floor a ticking moment of vulnerability. Lily clung to her, her small face buried in Elena's side, her trembling a constant reminder of the danger they were in. Richard's expression hardened, the joy of reunion momentarily overshadowed by a chilling realization of the continued danger. He looked at Elena, the unassuming cleaner who had risked everything, who had navigated a world of shadows and deceit to bring him his daughter. He was a billionaire, a man of immense power, but he felt utterly humbled in her presence. She had saved his child, and he knew, with absolute certainty, that he owed her everything. But her anonymity, her quiet strength, and her unwavering determination to protect Lily, even at immense personal risk, bewildered him. He had never encountered such selfless courage. Finally, the elevator doors opened to the ground floor loading dock. The night air, cool and fresh, was a welcome relief. Elena glanced around. Empty. She pulled Lily out, then quickly pushed her cleaning cart back into the elevator, sending it back up, a silent decoy. "We will talk, Elena," Richard said, his voice firm, his gaze filled with a fierce resolve. "Everything. But first, let's get Lily somewhere truly safe. And then, you will tell me everything, every single detail." He looked at Lily, nestled safely in his arms, then back at Elena, the unlikely hero who had flipped his fate overnight. "Thank you," he whispered, the words inadequate to express the depth of his gratitude. "Thank you for saving my Lily." Then, holding Lily's hand tightly, Elena slipped out of the building, melting into the pre-dawn shadows of the city. The gleaming corporate tower, a symbol of power and wealth, now felt like a cage, a place where innocence had been brutally imprisoned. Elena looked down at the small, trembling hand in hers. She had no plan, no resources, and no idea what the future held. But she had a child to protect, a life to save. And for Elena, that was enough. The fate of a terrified, trafficked child now rested entirely in the hands of a kind cleaner, whose own life was about to be irrevocably flipped overnight. Richard Sterling, clutching Lily close, led Elena to his private, secure residence, a hidden sanctuary nestled deep within a sprawling, forested estate. It was a place of immense luxury, yet tonight, it felt like a fortress, a necessary shield against the unseen dangers that still lurked. Lily, exhausted by the emotional reunion, had finally fallen into a deep, peaceful sleep in her own bed, a bed she hadn't seen in 2 agonizing years. Richard had watched over her, tears silently tracing paths down his face, before returning to Elena, who waited in a quiet, opulent drawing room. The pre-dawn chill of the city streets bit at Elena's skin, but the cold within her was far more profound. She clutched Lily's small, trembling hand, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs. They were out, safe, for now. But the for now hung heavy in the air, a precarious bubble of fragile security. Elena had no plan, no resources, and a terrified child clinging to her side. Her tiny apartment, a single room in a rundown building across town, was her only sanctuary, a place barely big enough for herself, let alone a traumatized child. Elena, still in her simple, worn clothes, felt a profound sense of unreality. The gilded ceilings, the priceless art, the hushed elegance of the room were a stark contrast to her humble apartment. Yet, Richard Sterling, the billionaire CEO, sat opposite her, his face etched with a raw vulnerability she hadn't expected. He was no longer the desperate father from the warehouse. He was a man seeking answers, a man humbled by an unassuming cleaner who had saved his world. The walk felt endless, each shadow a potential threat, each distant siren a chilling reminder of the world they had just escaped. Lily, surprisingly quiet, stumbled beside her, her small hand never leaving Elena's grip. The child's silence was more unsettling than any cry. It spoke of a trauma so deep it had stolen her voice. "Elena," Richard began, his voice low and steady, though a tremor of raw emotion still lingered beneath the surface. "You said on the phone that the police are compromised. My own security. Tell me everything. From the beginning." Finally, they reached Elena's building, a nondescript brick structure tucked away on a side street. The hallway was dimly lit, smelling faintly of stale cooking and damp concrete. Elena fumbled with her keys, her hands shaking, and pushed open the door to her apartment. Elena took a deep breath, steeling herself. This was it, the moment to lay bare the terrifying truth. She started with the night she found Lily, huddled in the utility closet, her small body trembling with fear. She described Lily's malnourished state, the trauma that had stolen her voice, the desperate need to protect her. She spoke of the tiny apartment, the dwindling savings, the constant fear of discovery. The room was small, sparse, but meticulously clean. A single bed, a worn armchair, a tiny kitchenette crammed into a corner. It was a far cry from the gleaming corporate offices she cleaned, or the big house Lily had vaguely mentioned. Elena led Lily inside, gently closing the door behind them. The click of the lock, a small, comforting sound. Richard listened, his expression shifting from horror to a simmering rage as Elena recounted the details of Lily's condition. His hands clenched into fists, his jaw tight. Lily stood in the middle of the room, her eyes wide, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings. She looked utterly lost, a tiny bird fallen from its nest. Elena's heart ached with a fierce protectiveness. Then, Elena moved on to the locket. She explained how she had found it, how its unique design had sparked her suspicion. She described Lily's fragmented memories, big house, kind parents, swing, and how those whispers, combined with the locket, had led her to the old news report about Lily Sterling, the missing heiress. "It's not much," Elena whispered, kneeling down to Lily's level. "But it's safe here. No one will find you." She gently touched Lily's cheek, her thumb brushing away a streak of dirt. The child's skin was cold, her face gaunt. "I knew then," Elena said, her voice quiet but firm, "that she wasn't just any child. She was your child, and if they were powerful enough to take her, they would be powerful enough to find her again. And to silence me. Elena immediately set about making Lily comfortable. She found a clean, if slightly too large, t-shirt and a pair of old sweatpants for Lily to change into. She heated some water on her small stove, making a weak, sugary tea to warm the child from the inside out. Lily drank it slowly, her eyes never leaving Elena's face, a fragile trust beginning to form in their depths. She recounted the men at her door, their menacing questions about the missing child from the Sterling building. She explained her desperate, risky decision to go back to the corporate tower, to leave the locket and the note directly in his private journal, bypassing all official channels. "I saw them, Mr. Sterling," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "The men searching your office, they weren't looking for Lily. They were looking for any trace she might have left behind. And they were looking for me." "Are you hungry, sweetheart?" Elena asked, her voice soft. She rummaged through her meager pantry, finding a few crackers and a piece of fruit. Lily nodded, her eyes fixed on the food. She ate ravenously, almost frantically, as if fearing it would be snatched away. Elena watched her, a lump forming in her throat. This child had clearly been starved. Richard listened, his face growing paler with each revelation. The pieces of the puzzle, the vague unease he had felt about the stalled investigation, the leads that went nowhere, the sudden disappearances of certain evidence, it all clicked into place with chilling clarity. His own security, his own trusted network, had indeed been compromised, infiltrated. Over the next few days, Elena lived in a constant state of heightened alert. She called in sick for her cleaning shifts, fabricating a story about a sudden illness. She knew her job, her only source of income, was now at risk. But Lily's safety was paramount. She spent her days trying to coax Lily out of her shell, to understand what she had endured. "They are part of a larger network, Mr. Sterling," Elena continued, her eyes fixed on his. "They are ruthless. They deal in human lives, and they will stop at nothing to get Lily back, or to make sure she can't speak." Lily was deeply traumatized. She flinched at sudden movements, recoiled from loud noises, and often woke from nightmares, screaming silently, her small body racked with tremors. She spoke very little, her voice a fragile whisper, often dissolving into choked whimpers. Elena learned patience she didn't know she possessed. She would sit with Lily for hours, simply holding her, stroking her hair, humming quiet lullabies. She cooked simple, nourishing meals, trying to tempt Lily's appetite. She read her children's books, even though Lily seemed too old for them, simply to hear the sound of a gentle voice. Richard leaned back, running a hand through his hair, his eyes closed for a moment. The magnitude of the betrayal, not just of his daughter, but within his own empire, was staggering. He had been so consumed by grief, so blinded by his own despair, that he had failed to see the rot within his own walls. Slowly, painstakingly, a fragile bond began to form between them. Lily would follow Elena around the tiny apartment, her blue eyes fixed on her, a silent shadow. She would lean into Elena's touch, finding comfort in the warmth of her hand. One afternoon, as Elena was mending a tear in Lily's worn shirt, Lily reached out and gently touched Elena's hand. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes, a silent declaration of trust. He opened his eyes, and they met Elena's. In her gaze, he saw not just the quiet cleaner, but a woman of extraordinary courage, integrity, and selflessness. She had risked her life, her livelihood, everything she had, to protect a child who was a complete stranger to her. She hadn't asked for a reward, hadn't sought fame, hadn't tried to exploit the situation. She had simply acted out of pure, unadulterated kindness. Elena, despite her own exhaustion and mounting financial worries, found a profound purpose in caring for Lily. This child, who had been discarded and abused, was now her responsibility, her reason for fighting. She knew the risks were immense. The traffickers would be looking for Lily, and if they found her, Elena knew her own life would be in grave danger, but she wouldn't abandon Lily. "Elena," Richard said, his voice thick with emotion. I don't know how to thank you. You saved my daughter. You brought her back from a nightmare I thought she would never escape." He rose from his chair, walking towards her, his eyes filled with a profound gratitude that transcended words. "You are a hero, a true hero." Her meager savings dwindled rapidly. Food, basic necessities, even a few small toys to try and bring a flicker of joy to Lily's eyes. It all added up. Elena worried constantly about money, about how long she could sustain them both without her job. She started selling off some of her few possessions. Small pieces of jewelry, a beloved old radio, anything to buy them another day of safety. Elena shifted uncomfortably, unused to such praise. I couldn't leave her. Mr. Sterling, no child deserves that. One evening, as Lily was finally sleeping peacefully in Elena's bed, Elena slept on the floor beside her. Elena sat in the dim light, mending another one of Lily's tattered clothes. As she carefully stitched a torn seam, she noticed something tucked into the inside pocket of Lily's worn jacket. It was a locket. Richard stopped before her, his gaze unwavering. No, they don't. And because of you, Lily has a second chance. And I have my daughter back. He reached out, taking her hands in his. His touch was warm, firm, filled with a respect that made Elena's heart flutter. You said they're still out there, that they're looking for you. I promise you, Elena, from this moment forward, you and Lily are under my absolute protection. I will move heaven and earth to ensure your safety. And I will dismantle this network, every single one of them, for what they did to my daughter, and for what they tried to do to you. Elena carefully opened the locket. Inside, there were two tiny, faded photographs. One was of a handsome man with kind eyes, smiling warmly. The other, a woman with a gentle face and a striking resemblance to Lily, her eyes mirroring the same startling blue. They looked like a family, a loving, prosperous family. His expression hardened, a steely resolve replacing the grief in his eyes. The billionaire CEO, once consumed by despair, was now reawakened, fueled by a renewed purpose and a fierce, protective rage. He looked at Elena, the unassuming cleaner who had flipped his fate overnight, and saw not just a savior, but an ally. He recognized her pure heart, her unwavering courage, and knew that she would be an invaluable asset in the terrifying hunt that was about to begin. The truth had been revealed, and with it, a new battle line was drawn. Lily had mentioned a big house once, in a rare moment of semi-lucid conversation, her voice barely a whisper. Big house. Kind parents. Then bad men. The words had been fragmented, lost in the haze of her trauma. But now, seeing the locket, the photographs, the exquisite craftsmanship, a chilling realization began to dawn on Elena. Lily wasn't just a lost child. She was a child from a world of privilege, a world of wealth. This wasn't just a rescue, it was a discovery. And the implications were terrifying. The quiet drawing room, once a space of hushed elegance, now hummed with a different kind of energy. Richard Sterling, no longer the hollow shell of a grieving father, stood before Elena, his eyes burning with a renewed purpose, a fierce, protective rage. The truth Elena had laid bare had shattered his despair, replacing it with a steely resolve. He had his daughter back, and now he would move heaven and earth to dismantle the network that had stolen her, and to protect the woman who had brought her home. The locket was a clue, a thread leading back to Lily's past, but it also meant that Lily was not just any trafficked child. She was someone important, someone whose disappearance would have been noticed, searched for, and if her family was powerful, then the people who had taken her, the traffickers, must be equally powerful and equally ruthless. Elena's humble sanctuary, her tiny apartment, suddenly felt incredibly vulnerable. The stakes had just been raised exponentially. She was no longer just protecting a child, she was protecting a secret that could flip her own fate overnight, for better or for worse. Elena, Richard said, his voice firm, you are safe here. Lily is safe. From this moment, you are both under my absolute protection. No one will get to you. And now, we begin the hunt. The exquisite locket, cool and heavy in Elena's palm, felt like a ticking time bomb. Lily wasn't just a lost child, she was a missing heiress, a fact that elevated the stakes from a desperate rescue to a perilous game of hide-and-seek with ruthless, powerful individuals. Elena's tiny apartment, once a humble sanctuary, now felt like a fragile glass house, utterly exposed to the lurking shadows outside. The implications were terrifying if Lily's family was powerful enough to own such a locket. Then the people who had trafficked her must be equally, if not more, formidable. He immediately moved to a secure communication device, a sleek, encrypted satellite phone that bypassed all conventional networks. He spoke in low, rapid commands, his voice sharp and decisive, a stark contrast to the weary tone Elena had heard before. Marcus, activate Project Chimera. Full resources. I want every available asset mobilized. Forensic teams, intelligence analysts, cybersecurity, focus on human trafficking networks, specifically those operating in this region. I want names, locations, patterns, and I want it yesterday. The silence that had settled over the city after Lily's escape was short-lived. The very next morning, a chilling ripple spread through the corporate building where Elena worked. Whispers turned into hushed conversations, then frantic inquiries. Security personnel, usually lax during the night shift, were suddenly everywhere, their faces grim, their eyes sharp and suspicious. Elena, feigning illness, received a curt call from her supervisor, demanding to know when she would return. The urgency in his voice was unnerving. He hung up, then turned to Elena, his gaze intense. Marcus is my head of security, my most trusted operative. He's already assembling the team. But they will need your help. Elena, you've been on the ground. You've seen them. You understand their methods in a way my analysts never could. The traffickers knew. They knew Lily was gone. Elena, despite her exhaustion, felt a surge of adrenaline. This was it, the fight for justice. She nodded, her resolve hardening. I will help in any way I can. Mr. Sterling. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. She imagined them, a shadowy network, their tentacles reaching into every corner of the city, searching, hunting. They wouldn't just be looking for Lily. They would be looking for whoever helped her escape. And Elena, the invisible cleaner, was now a prime suspect, unknowingly caught in the crosshairs of a dangerous criminal enterprise. Richard, he corrected softly, a faint smile touching his lips. Please, after everything, it's Richard. She spent her days confined to the apartment, the curtains drawn, the television a low, comforting hum to mask any stray sounds. Lily, still fragile and mostly silent, seemed to sense the heightened tension. She clung to Elena more tightly, her small hand often reaching for the locket, clutching it like a talisman. Elena would hold her, stroking her hair, whispering reassurances she wasn't sure she believed herself. Over the next few days, Richard Sterling's sprawling estate transformed into a high-tech command center. Teams of highly skilled professionals, discreet and efficient, arrived, setting up sophisticated equipment. Elena, initially overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the operation, quickly found her footing. She became an invaluable asset, her quiet observations and first-hand experiences proving crucial. The news reports, when Elena dared to glance at them, were filled with stories of a massive police investigation launched after the discovery of a human trafficking ring operating in the city. There were arrests, raids, but no mention of a missing child, no mention of Lily. This meant the traffickers were powerful enough to suppress information, to control the narrative, or perhaps Lily was just one of many, a small piece in a much larger, more terrifying puzzle. She sat with intelligence analysts, describing the utility closet where she found Lily, the layout of the corporate building, the specific times she had seen suspicious activity. She recounted the appearance of the two men who had come to her apartment, their menacing demeanor, their veiled threats. She described Madame X, the name Lily had whispered in her sleep, a name that sent a chill down Elena's spine. One afternoon, a sharp, insistent knock echoed through Elena's apartment. Her blood ran cold. She froze, clutching Lily to her, her eyes wide with terror. It was too loud, too aggressive for a neighbor. It had to be them. Lily mentioned a woman, Elena explained to a team of profilers, her voice low. She called her Madame X. She said she was cold, and she hurt other children. Elena's eyes clouded with pain as she recalled Lily's faint tremors, her silent screams in the night. She peered through the peephole, her breath hitched in her throat. Two men, burly and stern-faced, stood outside. They wore cheap suits, but their eyes were hard, their posture menacing. They didn't look like police. They looked like enforcers. Richard, always present, watched Elena with growing admiration. She spoke with a quiet authority, her insights sharp and precise. She wasn't just recounting facts, she was conveying the raw, visceral reality of the traffickers' cruelty, providing a human dimension to the cold data. She helped the profilers understand the psychological tactics used by the network, the subtle signs of trauma in the children, the fear that permeated their existence. "Cleaning services," one of them barked, his voice rough. "We're here about the missing child from the Sterling building. We know she was seen with a cleaner." Lily, meanwhile, was slowly beginning to heal, surrounded by the loving care of her father and the gentle presence of Elena. She still had nightmares, but they were less frequent, less intense. She began to speak more, her voice gaining strength, telling fragmented stories of her ordeal, of other children she had seen, of the dark rooms and the bad people. Elena would sit with her, listening patiently, gently coaxing out details that could be vital to the investigation. Elena pressed herself against the door, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm. The Sterling building. That was the corporate tower where she worked. They had connected her to Lily. The walls were closing in. She said they moved children around in unmarked vans. Elena relayed to Richard and Marcus one evening, her brow furrowed in concentration. And they used code names. She heard Sparrow and Shadow a lot. She remained silent, barely breathing, clutching Lily tighter. After a tense minute, the men exchanged a frustrated glance and then, to Elena's immense relief, turned and walked away, their heavy footsteps echoing down the hallway. Marcus scribbled furiously, cross-referencing the information with existing data, unmarked vans, code names. This aligns with our intelligence on a specific cell operating in the city's abandoned industrial zones. Sparrow and Shadow could be key operatives. Elena sank to the floor, trembling, Lily still clinging to her. That was too close. They were actively searching, and they were getting closer. Her humble apartment, once a fortress, now felt like a flimsy paper bag. Richard, seeing Elena's deep connection with Lily, realized her unique value. She understood Lily's trauma, could interpret her fragmented memories, and could provide insights that no seasoned investigator could. She was not just a witness. She was a bridge to Lily's terrifying past, a guide through the darkness. Her meager savings were almost gone. She couldn't go back to work. It was too dangerous. She couldn't risk exposing Lily, or herself. The thought of contacting the police was terrifying. What if they didn't believe her? What if they somehow handed Lily back to the very people who had abused her? What if they were compromised? The world felt like a labyrinth of shadows, and she, a simple cleaner, was caught in its darkest corners. "Hey, Elena," Richard said one afternoon, finding her sitting quietly beside Lily, who was drawing with crayons. "I want you to be an official part of this operation. You have a unique perspective, an invaluable connection to Lily, and a courage I've rarely seen. Your insights are crucial." The fear wasn't just for herself. It was overwhelmingly for Lily. The child had already endured so much. Elena couldn't bear the thought of her falling back into the hands of those monsters. She looked at the locket Lily still clutched, the symbol of the soaring eagle. It was a clue, yes, but it was also a beacon, drawing danger closer. Elena looked up, surprised. "Me, but I'm just a cleaner." "Richard." Elena knew she needed help. She couldn't protect Lily alone anymore. But who could she trust? Every face seemed to hold a potential threat, every stranger a hidden agenda. Her life had been one of quiet anonymity, and now she was thrust into a world of high-stakes danger, protecting a secret that could cost her everything. Richard knelt beside her, his gaze earnest. "You are far more than that, Elena. You are a rescuer, a protector. You understand the human cost of this evil, and that understanding is more valuable than any intelligence report. We need your heart, Elena, as much as we need your observations." One night, as Lily finally drifted into a fitful sleep, Elena sat by the window, staring out at the city lights. They no longer seemed comforting. They seemed cold, indifferent, hiding a million secrets. She thought of Lily's fragmented whispers, big house, kind parents. Lily had a family, a powerful family. If that locket was any indication, they must be searching for her. Desperately. He then explained his plan to establish a new, highly specialized unit within Sterling Industries' security division, dedicated solely to dismantling human trafficking networks. Elena would be a key member, working directly with Marcus and his team, providing her unique insights and helping to develop strategies for rescuing other children. A desperate, audacious idea began to form in Elena's mind. A risky gamble, but perhaps the only one left. She had to find Lily's family. She had to tell them. But how? And how could she do it without alerting the traffickers, without putting Lily in even greater danger? The thought of contacting a billionaire, of stepping into a world she knew nothing about, was daunting. But the alternative, remaining hidden and vulnerable, was no longer an option. The walls were closing in, and Elena knew, with a chilling certainty, that time was running out. Elena's eyes widened. It was a world away from her cleaning cart, from her tiny apartment. It was a chance to make a real difference, to fight the very evil she had stumbled upon. The thought was daunting, but also exhilarating. The chilling encounter with the two menacing men at her door had solidified Elena's fears. The traffickers were closing in. Her humble apartment, once a haven, now felt like a cage, and her meager savings were dwindling fast. Lily, still fragile and prone to silent tremors, needed more than Elena could provide alone. The audacious idea of finding Lily's family, a family powerful enough to own that exquisite locket, began to feel less like a desperate gamble and more like their only chance. As the investigation intensified, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. They identified key figures in Madame X's network, their methods of operation, their hidden safe houses. They learned that Madame X was a shadowy figure, rarely seen, controlling her vast enterprise through layers of intermediaries. She was ruthless, intelligent, and utterly devoid of conscience. Elena spent the next few days scrutinizing the locket, its weight in her hand, the cool gleam of the white gold, and the intricate engraving spoke volumes about its origins. The symbol of the soaring eagle clutching a stylized S was unlike anything she had ever seen. It was clearly a crest, a family emblem, hinting at a lineage of wealth and prominence. She knew she couldn't risk taking it to a pawnshop or a jeweler. That would draw too much attention. Too many questions. But Madame X, too, was becoming aware of the growing threat. The sudden, efficient dismantling of her lower-level operations, the precise targeting of her safe houses, sent a chilling message through her network. She knew Lily had been found, and she knew someone was actively working against her. Her focus narrowed, her suspicion falling on the one person who could have facilitated Lily's escape from the heavily guarded Sterling building, the cleaner. Lily, meanwhile, was slowly, painstakingly, beginning to heal. The consistent kindness, the gentle touch, and the unwavering presence of Elena were slowly coaxing her out of the deep well of trauma. She still spoke in whispers, but her words were becoming more frequent, less fragmented. She would often trace the eagle symbol on her locket with a small, hesitant finger, her eyes distant, lost in memories. The hunt had begun. Richard, fueled by vengeance and a desperate need for justice, unleashed his vast resources. Elena, guided by compassion and an unwavering resolve, provided the crucial insights. And somewhere in the shadows, Madame X, a ruthless puppet master, was preparing her counterattack, her gaze fixed on the kind cleaner who had dared to rescue her prize. The battle lines were drawn, and the fate of many innocent lives hung in the balance. One afternoon, as Elena was gently brushing Lily's tangled hair, Lily suddenly spoke, her voice a soft, faraway murmur. "Mama used to wear a shiny bird, like mine." She pointed to the locket. "And Papa had a big office, with many windows and a garden. A very big garden." The battle lines were drawn. Richard Sterling, fueled by a father's vengeance, had unleashed his vast resources, and Elena, guided by a cleaner's compassion, provided the crucial insights. But in the shadowy depths of the criminal underworld, Madame X, a ruthless puppet master, was not idle. The sudden, precise dismantling of her lower-level operations, the chilling efficiency with which her safe houses were raided, sent a clear, terrifying message through her network. Lily Sterling had been found, and someone was actively working to destroy her empire. Madame X's cold, calculating mind immediately focused on the only variable she couldn't account for: the cleaner. Elena's heart pounded. A big garden? Lily, was it a big house? She prompted gently, trying not to startle the child. The counterattack began subtly, a series of escalating probes designed to test Elena's defenses and confirm Madame X's suspicions. Elena, now living in Richard's secure estate, was under constant, discreet protection. But the psychological warfare was insidious. Lily nodded, her eyes wide, very big, and a swing. Papa pushed me very high, and Mama sang. A faint, wistful smile touched her lips, a rare glimpse of the innocent child she once was. Then, the shadow returned. Then bad men, dark car, no more swing. Her small body stiffened, and she retreated into herself, the memories too painful to bear. It started with anonymous, chilling messages sent to Elena's old, untraceable burner phone, the one she had used to contact Richard. They were short, cryptic, yet laced with a chilling familiarity. You thought you were clever, cleaner. You thought you could hide. Or, the child will return to her rightful place, and you will pay for your interference. Elena would show them to Marcus, her face pale, her heart pounding, but her resolve unwavering. Elena held her close, her mind racing. Big house. Kind parents. Shiny bird. It all pointed to a life of immense privilege. The locket was undoubtedly a family heirloom, a symbol of their identity. Elena knew she had to find a way to research that symbol without leaving her apartment, without drawing attention. Then came the physical threats. One afternoon, as Elena was taking a supervised walk in the estate's vast gardens, a drone, small and silent, hovered overhead for a few unnerving moments before disappearing. It was a clear message they knew where she was. The security detail immediately tightened, but the sense of being watched, of being hunted, settled deep in Elena's bones. She had an old, battered laptop, a relic from a previous, slightly less desperate life. It was slow, outdated, but it had internet access. Late at night, after Lily was asleep, Elena would meticulously search online, typing in descriptions of the locket, the eagle symbol, the stylized S. She sifted through countless images of corporate logos, family crests, and jewelry designs, her eyes burning with exhaustion, her fingers aching. A few days later, a package arrived at the estate, addressed simply to Elena. Inside, nestled on a bed of black velvet, was a single withered lily, its petals scorched, its stem broken. Beside it, a small, crudely drawn picture of a child, her eyes wide with terror, trapped in a cage. It was a direct, horrifying threat, a chilling reminder of Lily's past and the fate that awaited Elena if she failed. Days turned into nights, filled with fruitless searches. The internet was a vast, overwhelming ocean of information, and Elena felt like a tiny rowboat, adrift. Just as despair began to set in, she stumbled upon an article. It was an old news report, buried deep in an archived business journal. The headline screamed Sterling Industries heir, Lily Sterling, abducted billionaire's daughter, missing for 2 years. Richard found Elena staring at the package, her face ashen. He immediately took it, his jaw tight with suppressed fury. "This is a declaration of war," he stated, his voice low and dangerous. "She wants to scare you, to break you. But we won't let her." Elena's breath hitched. Her eyes darted to the accompanying photograph. It was an older picture, but the child in it was unmistakably Lily. The same startling blue eyes, the same delicate features, and around her neck, clear as day, was the very locket Lily clutched now, the soaring eagle with the stylized S. He ordered an immediate, comprehensive sweep of the entire estate, bolstering their defenses, installing advanced surveillance. He doubled Elena's personal security detail, ensuring she was never alone, never vulnerable. He saw the fear in her eyes, but he also saw the unwavering determination that still burned within her. The article detailed the abduction of Lily Sterling, the only daughter of Richard Sterling, the reclusive billionaire CEO of Sterling Industries, a global conglomerate with vast holdings in technology and finance. The abduction had occurred 2 years ago from their sprawling estate, which was described with a vast, meticulously landscaped garden and a grand, multi-winged mansion. Kind parents, big house, swing. Lily's fragmented memories perfectly matched the details in the article. Lily, meanwhile, was slowly, miraculously, healing. The constant love and attention from Richard, and especially from Elena, were working wonders. She was speaking more freely, her laughter, once a distant memory, now echoing through the grand halls of the mansion. She adored Elena, clinging to her, seeing her as a second mother, a beacon of safety and comfort. This burgeoning bond between Lily and Elena was something Richard observed with profound emotion. He saw the way Lily's eyes lit up when Elena entered the room, the way she would instinctively reach for Elena's hand. It was a connection born of shared trauma and unwavering compassion, a bond that transcended blood. Elena felt a dizzying mix of shock, relief, and profound fear. Lily wasn't just a missing heiress. She was the missing heiress, the daughter of one of the most powerful men in the world. The implications of this revelation were staggering. The people who had trafficked her were not just petty criminals, they were ruthless, highly organized individuals who had dared to abduct the child of a billionaire. This deep connection, however, also made Elena a target. Madame X, with her cold, calculating mind, recognized Elena as Lily's emotional anchor. She believed that by breaking Elena, she could break Lily, or at least force Richard to back down. The article also mentioned the immense, ongoing search for Lily Sterling, the vast resources Richard Sterling had poured into finding his daughter, the despair that had settled over him as hope dwindled. He had offered an unprecedented reward for any information leading to her return. The threats escalated. Elena's old apartment building was ransacked, a clear message that Madame X knew her past. Then Mrs. Rodriguez, Elena's kind neighbor who had cared for Lily, received an anonymous, threatening phone call, warning her to stay out of what doesn't concern her. Richard immediately moved Mrs. Rodriguez and her family to a secure, undisclosed location, ensuring their safety. Elena looked at the sleeping child beside her, her small hand still clutching the locket. She had rescued a billionaire's heir. The fate of this child, and now, by extension, her own, had flipped overnight. The anonymity she had sought was now impossible. She was holding the key to a global mystery, a secret that could either bring unimaginable reward or catastrophic danger. Elena felt a surge of guilt. "This is my fault, Richard," she said, her voice trembling. "I brought this danger to everyone I care about." The fear intensified, sharp and cold. If Richard Sterling was searching, then the traffickers were still out there, desperate to cover their tracks, to find Lily before her family did. And Elena, the simple cleaner who had stumbled upon their horrifying secret, was now directly in their path. She was no longer just hiding a child, she was hiding the most valuable missing person in the world. Richard took her hands, his gaze firm. "No, Elena, this is not your fault. This is the evil they represent. You exposed it, you fought against it, and we will fight them together. You are not a burden, you are our strength. Your courage, your compassion. That is what truly threatens them." She knew what she had to do. She had to contact Richard Sterling, but how a billionaire wouldn't just take a call from a cleaner? And she couldn't risk alerting the traffickers by going through official channels. She needed a way to reach him directly, discreetly, and with irrefutable proof that she had his daughter. The stakes had never been higher. The walls were not just closing in, they were crumbling. And Elena knew, with a chilling certainty, that her life and Lily's depended on her next move. He saw her unwavering courage, her quiet resolve in the face of escalating danger. He saw her gentle patience with Lily, her ability to coax laughter from a traumatized child. He saw her integrity, her refusal to be corrupted by the wealth and power that now surrounded her. He had witnessed her transformation from a terrified cleaner to a formidable ally, a woman whose moral compass was unshakable. The revelation that Lily was Lily Sterling, the missing heiress of Sterling Industries, had ignited a desperate fire within Elena. The immense reward offered by Richard Sterling for his daughter's return was a distant thought. Her immediate, overwhelming concern was Lily's safety. But how does a cleaner, living paycheck to paycheck, discreetly contact a reclusive billionaire without drawing the attention of the ruthless traffickers who were clearly still searching? The stakes were astronomical, and Elena knew one wrong move could cost them everything. Richard, a man who had always valued logic and power, found himself increasingly drawn to Elena's quiet strength, her profound empathy. He saw how Lily thrived under Elena's care, how Elena's presence brought a warmth and light into his once desolate home. His admiration for her grew into something deeper, something he hadn't felt since his wife's passing. It was a quiet, burgeoning affection, born not of convenience or obligation, but of a profound respect and a shared purpose. Elena spent a sleepless night, her mind racing, trying to devise a plan. She couldn't just walk into Sterling Industries. Security would be impenetrable, and she risked being dismissed as a delusional opportunist. She couldn't call the police. The traffickers seemed to have connections, and she feared Lily might fall into the wrong hands again. She needed a direct line, a way to present irrefutable proof to Richard Sterling himself, without anyone else knowing. Madame X's final, most audacious move came in the form of a direct message, delivered not to Elena, but to Richard himself. It was a video, encrypted and untraceable, showing a chilling glimpse of other children, terrified and vulnerable, held captive in a dark, unknown location. A distorted voice, clearly Madame X, spoke over the footage, "Return Lily Sterling and the cleaner, or these children will pay for your insolence. And you will never find them." The locket. It was the key. Its unique design, the photographs, Lily's fragmented memories, these were the proofs. But how to get them to him? The threat was a brutal punch to the gut. Richard's face hardened, his eyes burning with a cold, righteous fury. But Elena, standing beside him, her face pale but resolute, looked at the screen, her gaze fixed on the terrified faces of the children. Her compassion, her unwavering commitment to justice, was reignited. A memory surfaced from her cleaning shifts at the Sterling building. She recalled seeing a framed photograph on a desk in a high-security executive office, an office she was only allowed to clean late at night, under strict supervision. It was a photograph of a man and a woman, smiling, holding a small child. The woman in the photo was Lily's mother, her blue eyes unmistakable. And the man. He was Richard Sterling, his face etched with a quiet intensity, even in the picture. That office, she realized, was likely his private sanctuary within the corporate tower. "We won't let her win," Elena stated, her voice firm, her eyes blazing with a fierce determination. "We save them all. Richard, we dismantle her entire network." The idea was audacious, terrifying, and utterly insane. She would have to go back to the building, the very place where she had found Lily, the very place the traffickers were now scrutinizing. It was a gamble, but it was the only way she could think of to directly reach him. To bypass all the layers of security and skepticism, Richard looked at her, his heart swelling with admiration. She was not just a rescuer, she was a warrior. And in that moment, as they stood together, united against a common, terrifying enemy, their bond solidified, transforming from gratitude and respect into a deep, unwavering partnership, ready to face the ultimate confrontation. She waited for 3 days, forcing herself to be patient, to plan meticulously. She used her remaining meager funds to buy a cheap, disposable burner phone, ensuring no one could trace her. She also bought a small, discreet digital camera, the cheapest she could find, to photograph the locket and Lily's distinct features as proof. The chilling video, a stark glimpse into the depths of Madame X's depravity, ignited a new, fiercer resolve in both Elena and Richard. The threat was no longer just about Lily. It was about every innocent child trapped in that monstrous network. Elena's compassion, her unwavering commitment to justice, burned brighter than ever. Richard, witnessing her unwavering strength in the face of such horror, felt his admiration for her deepen into something profound and undeniable. On the third night, under the cloak of a moonless sky, Elena prepared. She dressed in her old cleaning uniform, the familiar fabric a strange comfort. She left Lily with Mrs. Rodriguez, a kind, elderly neighbor who occasionally looked after children for a small fee, fabricating a story about an urgent, unexpected cleaning job. Lily, sensing Elena's tension, clung to her, her eyes wide, but Elena gently reassured her, promising to return before dawn. Elena, despite the fear that still gnawed at her, refused to be intimidated. She spent hours with Richard's intelligence team, poring over the grainy video footage, trying to identify any subtle clues about the children's location or the specific characteristics of their captors. Her keen observational skills, honed by years of unnoticed work, proved invaluable. She pointed out details that seasoned analysts had missed: a specific pattern on a wall, a unique sound in the background, a fleeting glimpse of a logo on a guard's uniform. Each detail, however small, was a thread in the complex web of Madame X's network. The corporate building loomed, a dark, silent monolith against the city skyline. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs as she approached the service entrance, her old employee badge clutched in her sweaty palm. She knew the night watchman, an older man named Frank, who usually just waved her through. But tonight, she sensed a heightened vigilance. Lily, now thriving in the secure environment of her home, was a constant source of inspiration and a living testament to Elena's courage. She was undergoing therapy, slowly processing her trauma, but her bond with Elena was the most powerful catalyst for her healing. Lily would often climb into Elena's lap, her small arms wrapping around her neck, whispering secrets and sharing stories. Elena would read to her, play games, and simply hold her, offering the unwavering comfort and unconditional love that Lily had been starved of for so long. "Evening, Elena," Frank said, his eyes sharper than usual. "Haven't seen you in a few nights. Everything all right?" Richard observed this burgeoning relationship with a mix of awe and profound emotion. He saw the way Lily's eyes lit up when Elena entered the room, the way her laughter, once so rare, now echoed freely through the grand halls of the mansion when she was with Elena. Elena wasn't just a rescuer. She was becoming a mother figure to Lily, filling a void that Richard, despite all his love and resources, couldn't fill alone. He saw how Elena's gentle patience, her boundless empathy, and her quiet strength were truly healing his daughter. "Just a bad flu, Frank," Elena replied, forcing a cough, her voice raspy. "But I had to come in. Big presentation tomorrow, and Mr. Henderson wants his office spotless." She offered a tired smile, hoping her exhaustion looked genuine. This profound impact on Lily solidified Richard's growing affection for Elena. He found himself seeking her out, not just for updates on the investigation, but for her quiet company, her insightful perspectives, and the warmth she brought into his once desolate home. He saw her unwavering courage in the face of Madame X's escalating threats, her refusal to break, her fierce determination to protect the innocent. He admired her integrity, her genuine kindness, and the way she remained utterly uncorrupted by the immense wealth and power that now surrounded her. Frank nodded, still scrutinizing her. "All right, just sign in and try not to stir up any trouble. Security's been a bit jumpy lately." One evening, after Lily had finally fallen asleep, Elena and Richard sat in the drawing room, the silence between them comfortable and warm. Richard found himself opening up to Elena in a way he hadn't done with anyone since his wife's passing. He spoke of his grief, his guilt over Lily's abduction, the years of despair that had consumed him. Elena listened, her gaze unwavering, offering quiet comfort and understanding. Elena's hand trembled as she signed the logbook, her name a shaky scrawl. She felt his gaze on her back as she pushed her cleaning cart into the service elevator. The ascent was agonizingly slow, each floor a ticking moment of vulnerability. "You've brought so much light back into this house, Elena," Richard murmured, his voice low, filled with emotion, "and into Lily's life. And mine." He reached out, taking her hand, his thumb gently stroking her knuckles. I haven't felt this kind of hope, this kind of peace, in years." She navigated the familiar corridors, her senses on high alert. Every shadow seemed to hold a lurking threat, every distant sound a potential discovery. She reached the executive floor, her heart pounding. The corridor leading to Richard Sterling's office was eerily quiet, the air thick with an unspoken tension. Elena met his gaze, her heart fluttering. The connection between them was undeniable, a bond forged not just in shared purpose, but in a profound mutual respect and a burgeoning affection. She saw beyond the billionaire, to the grieving father, the man of immense integrity who was fighting for justice. And he saw beyond the cleaner, to the woman of extraordinary courage and compassion. She located his office, the door slightly ajar, a sliver of light escaping from within. Her blood ran cold. Someone was inside. The threats from Madame X continued, but Elena faced them with a quiet bravery that astonished Richard. When another anonymous package arrived, containing a chillingly realistic doll resembling Lily, Elena simply handed it to Marcus, her face pale but her eyes resolute. "She's trying to get inside my head," Elena stated, her voice firm. "But she won't win." Elena pressed herself against the wall, her breath hitched. She heard hushed voices. Two men, their tones low and conspiratorial. They weren't security. They sounded dangerous. Richard witnessed Elena's unwavering resolve, her refusal to be broken. He saw her transformation from a terrified cleaner to a formidable ally, a woman whose moral compass was unshakable, whose spirit was indomitable. His admiration for her deepened into something profound, something akin to love. He knew, with absolute certainty, that Elena was not just Lily's rescuer, but the woman who had brought light back into his own life. Their bond, forged in the fires of adversity and shared purpose, was becoming an unbreakable force, ready to face the ultimate confrontation. "Did you find anything?" one voice growled. The chilling video from Madame X, a stark glimpse into the depths of her depravity, had ignited a new, fiercer resolve in both Elena and Richard. The threat was no longer just about Lily. It was about every innocent child trapped in that monstrous network. Elena's compassion, her unwavering commitment to justice, burned brighter than ever. Richard, witnessing her unwavering strength in the face of such horror, felt his admiration for her deepen into something profound and undeniable. "Nothing yet, but Madame X is furious. She says the cleaner is the only one who could have gotten her out without tripping the alarms." Elena, despite the fear that still gnawed at her, refused to be intimidated. She spent hours with Richard's intelligence team, poring over the grainy video footage, trying to identify any subtle clues about the children's location or the specific characteristics of their captors. Her keen observational skills, honed by years of unnoticed work, proved invaluable. She pointed out details that seasoned analysts had missed: a specific pattern on a wall, a unique sound in the background, a fleeting glimpse of a logo on a guard's uniform. Each detail, however small, was a thread in the complex web of Madame X's network. Elena's blood ran cold. They knew. They suspected her. Lily, now thriving in the secure environment of her home, was a constant source of inspiration and a living testament to Elena's courage. She was undergoing therapy, slowly processing her trauma, but her bond with Elena was the most powerful catalyst for her healing. Lily would often climb into Elena's lap, her small arms wrapping around her neck, whispering secrets and sharing stories. Elena would read to her, play games, and simply hold her, offering the unwavering comfort and unconditional love that Lily had been starved of for so long. "We need to find this cleaner," the second voice said, colder, more menacing. "And then we find the girl. Madame X wants her back, and she wants the cleaner to pay." Richard observed this burgeoning relationship with a mix of awe and profound emotion. He saw the way Lily's eyes lit up when Elena entered the room, the way her laughter, once so rare, now echoed freely through the grand halls of the mansion when she was with Elena. Elena wasn't just a rescuer, she was becoming a mother figure to Lily, filling a void that Richard, despite all his love and resources, couldn't fill alone. He saw how Elena's gentle patience, her boundless empathy, and her quiet strength were truly healing his daughter. Elena's mind raced. They were here, in Richard Sterling's office, searching. They must be looking for any clues Lily might have left behind, or perhaps even for any information Richard Sterling might have gathered about the trafficking ring. This profound impact on Lily solidified Richard's growing affection for Elena. He found himself seeking her out, not just for updates on the investigation, but for her quiet company, her insightful perspectives, and the warmth she brought into his once desolate home. He saw her unwavering courage in the face of Madame X's escalating threats, her refusal to break, her fierce determination to protect the innocent. He admired her integrity, her genuine kindness, and the way she remained utterly uncorrupted by the immense wealth and power that now surrounded her. She had to act. She couldn't risk them finding Lily's locket on her, or the photograph she had taken. She had to get a message to Richard Sterling, and she had to do it now, before she was discovered. One evening, after Lily had finally fallen asleep, Elena and Richard sat in the drawing room, the silence between them comfortable and warm. Richard found himself opening up to Elena in a way he hadn't done with anyone since his wife's passing. He spoke of his grief, his guilt over Lily's abduction, the years of despair that had consumed him. Elena listened, her gaze unwavering, offering quiet comfort and understanding. A desperate plan formed in her mind. She remembered the large, ornate desk in Richard Sterling's office, its surface always meticulously clean. She also remembered the small, leather-bound journal he kept on the corner of his desk, a private diary he sometimes scribbled in during his late-night work sessions. "You've brought so much light back into this house." "Elena," Richard murmured, his voice low, filled with emotion, "and into Lily's life. And mine." He reached out, taking her hand, his thumb gently stroking her knuckles. I haven't felt this kind of hope," this kind of peace in years. Taking a deep breath, Elena moved silently, her cleaning cart a shield. She crept towards the office door, listening intently. The voices inside were muffled, but she could hear the rustling of papers, the opening and closing of drawers. They were searching. Elena met his gaze, her heart fluttering. The connection between them was undeniable, a bond forged not just in shared purpose, but in a profound mutual respect and a burgeoning affection. She saw beyond the billionaire, to the grieving father, the man of immense integrity who is fighting for justice. And he saw beyond the cleaner, to the woman of extraordinary courage and compassion. With a sudden, decisive move, Elena flung open the closet door directly opposite Richard Sterling's office. The loud creak of the door echoed through the silent corridor, startling the men inside. The threats from Madame X continued, but Elena faced them with a quiet bravery that astonished Richard. When another anonymous package arrived, containing a chillingly realistic doll resembling Lily, Elena simply handed it to Marcus, her face pale, but her eyes resolute. "She's trying to get inside my head," Elena stated, her voice firm. "But she won't win." "What was that?" one of them hissed. Richard witnessed Elena's unwavering resolve, her refusal to be broken. He saw her transformation from a terrified cleaner to a formidable ally, a woman whose moral compass was unshakable, whose spirit was indomitable. His admiration for her deepened into something profound, something akin to love. He knew, with absolute certainty, that Elena was not just Lily's rescuer, but the woman who had brought light back into his own life. Their bond, forged in the fires of adversity and shared purpose, was becoming an unbreakable force, ready to face the ultimate confrontation. Elena didn't wait. As their attention was diverted, she darted to Richard Sterling's office door, slipped inside, and moved with lightning speed to his desk. She pulled out the burner phone, quickly snapped a clear photo of the locket, and then, with trembling fingers, she wrote a short, urgent message on a small piece of paper she tore from her cleaning checklist. The intelligence gathered from Elena's observations, combined with Richard's vast resources, began to paint a clearer picture of Madame X's operations. They identified a series of interconnected safe houses, front businesses, and transportation routes used by the network. The pattern that emerged was chillingly efficient, a cold, calculated machine designed to exploit the most vulnerable. Madame X was a ghost, a name whispered in fear, but her methods were becoming visible. "Lily Sterling is safe. I have her. She is the missing heiress. Look for the locket. Do not contact police. They are compromised. Call this number. I need to speak to Richard Sterling only. Trust no one else." Richard's team, led by Marcus, worked tirelessly. They used satellite imagery, intercepted communications, and deployed undercover operatives. Elena's insights into the subtle behaviors of the traffickers, gleaned from her time in the shadows, proved invaluable. She helped them identify key individuals within the network, recognizing faces and voices from Lily's fragmented memories, or from her own brief, terrifying encounters. She folded the note tightly, placed it inside the locket, and then, with a desperate prayer, she slipped the locket into the leather-bound journal on his desk, burying it deep within the pages. It was a gamble, a huge gamble, but it was the only way to ensure he found the proof directly and discreetly. The pressure mounted on Madame X. Her network, once seemingly impenetrable, was being systematically dismantled. Her lieutenants were being apprehended, her safe houses raided, her supply lines disrupted. She was losing control, and her frustration, usually hidden behind layers of cold calculation, began to show in increasingly desperate and violent counterattacks. As she finished, she heard footsteps approaching the office door. Panic surged through her. She was trapped. One night, as Elena was reviewing surveillance footage with Marcus, an alarm blared through the command center. A direct breach. One of Madame X's most ruthless enforcers, a man known only as the Butcher, had managed to infiltrate a perimeter of the estate, clearly targeting Elena. But Elena was a cleaner. She knew the building's secrets. She knew the small, hidden service passage behind the executive offices, used only for emergency maintenance. With a final, desperate glance at the desk, she slipped through a hidden panel behind a large bookshelf, disappearing into the darkness just as the two men burst into the office, their eyes wide with suspicion. Richard, alerted instantly, rushed to the command center. He saw Elena, her face pale but her eyes blazing with a fierce determination. Watching the live feed, the butcher was a formidable figure, a shadow moving with deadly precision towards Elena's secure wing. She heard their frustrated shouts, their angry curses, as they realized she was gone. But Elena didn't stop. She ran, her heart pounding, through the dark, narrow passage, her mind fixed on one terrifying, exhilarating thought: the message was delivered. Lily's fate, and her own, now rested in the hands of a grieving billionaire who was about to receive the most shocking and hopeful message of his life. "She's trying to get to Elena," Marcus stated, his voice grim. "She knows Elena is the key." The message was delivered. Elena had gambled everything on that desperate dash into Richard Sterling's office, on the hope that a grieving billionaire would find a tiny locket and a hastily scrawled note amidst the chaos of his life. Now, all she could do was wait. She returned to her humble apartment, her body aching, her nerves frayed, but a fragile thread of hope, thin as a spider's silk, had begun to weave itself into the fabric of her despair. Lily, thankfully, was still safe with Mrs. Rodriguez, oblivious to the terrifying risks Elena had just taken. Richard's blood ran cold. He had promised Elena absolute protection. He would not fail. "Seal off the wing," he commanded, his voice like steel. "Marcus, you and your best men with me. We intercept him." The next few days were an agonizing test of patience. Elena barely slept, her ears straining for the sound of her burner phone ringing. Every shadow outside her window seemed to lengthen. Every distant siren seemed to wail a warning. She imagined Richard Sterling, a man she had only seen in photographs, discovering her message, his reaction a mystery. Would he believe her? Would he dismiss her as a madwoman? Or worse, would the traffickers intercept the message before he did? Elena, however, had already made a decision. She knew the layout of the estate better than anyone. Having spent countless hours walking its grounds with Lily, she also knew the hidden service tunnels and emergency exits. She saw a tactical advantage, a way to lure the butcher into a trap, away from Lily's secure area. Meanwhile, in a world of gleaming skyscrapers and hushed boardrooms, Richard Sterling was a man drowning in a sea of grief. 2 years. 2 agonizing years since his daughter, Lily, his bright, vibrant Lily, had been snatched from their sprawling estate. The initial frenzy of the search had long since faded, replaced by a hollow, gnawing despair. He had poured billions into the search, hired the best investigators, followed every lead, chased every ghost, but nothing. Just silence. "No, Richard," Elena said, her voice firm, surprising him. "He's coming for me. Let me lead him. I know this place. I can draw him away, into the old West Wing. It's a dead end. Easy to corner him there." His life had become a monochrome existence. Sterling Industries, once his passion, was now just a machine he operated on autopilot. His grand, multi-winged mansion, once filled with Lily's laughter, was a mausoleum of memories. He moved through his days like a phantom, haunted by guilt, by the image of his daughter's smiling face in photographs, by the agonizing question of whether she was even still alive. Richard stared at her, astonished by her bravery. "Elena, that's too dangerous. You're not trained for this." He was a man consumed by his loss, his immense wealth a cruel mockery of his powerlessness. He could buy anything, command armies of people, but he couldn't buy back his daughter. His once sharp eyes, accustomed to dissecting complex financial reports, now held a perpetual sadness, a deep, weary resignation. He rarely left his office, often working through the night, the only solace found in the relentless pursuit of work, a desperate attempt to outrun the demons of his grief. "I don't need training to be bait, Richard," she retorted, her eyes unwavering. "I need to protect Lily, and to help you catch him. This is my fight too." Her compassion, her unwavering commitment to justice, was now a weapon. On the night Elena had risked everything, Richard Sterling was, as usual, in his office. The chaos of the building's heightened security, the frantic search by the 2 menacing men who were, unbeknownst to him, agents of Madame X, infiltrating his own security to find any trace of Lily, had barely registered. He was lost in a labyrinth of old case files, poring over grainy photographs of Lily, searching for a clue he had overlooked, a detail that would bring her back. Before Richard could protest further, Elena moved. She slipped out of the command center, her movements swift and silent, disappearing into the labyrinthine corridors of the mansion. Richard, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and admiration, immediately followed, Marcus and his team close behind. He had been interrupted by the sudden, loud creak from the utility closet, followed by the hurried footsteps of his own corrupted security detail bursting into his office. They had found nothing, of course, and he had dismissed them with a wave of his hand, returning to his agonizing search. Elena moved through the mansion like a phantom, her intimate knowledge of its passages and hidden rooms her greatest asset. She deliberately made just enough noise to draw the butcher's attention, leading him deeper into the Old West Wing, a rarely used section of the estate filled with dusty, ornate furniture and long, echoing hallways. It was in the quiet hours before dawn, when the building was truly silent, that Richard finally pushed away the files, his head aching, his heart heavy. He reached for his leather-bound journal, a habit he had cultivated since Lily's disappearance, a place to jot down stray thoughts, desperate prayers, and the occasional, fleeting memory of his daughter. The butcher, a hulking figure of menace, followed, his heavy footsteps echoing behind her. He snarled, "Come out! Cleaner Madam X wants to have a word with you." As he opened the journal, a small, folded piece of paper, a torn corner from a cleaning checklist, fluttered out. He frowned, picking it up. It was unusual. His office was always meticulously cleaned, nothing ever out of place. And then, something else caught his eye, tucked deep within the journal's pages, nestled between two entries about a failing merger, was a locket. Elena ignored him, her focus absolute. She reached the end of the wing, a grand circular room with no other exits. She turned, facing him, her body trembling, but her gaze resolute. His breath hitched. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. He knew that locket, every curve, every intricate engraving of the soaring eagle clutching the stylized S. It was his family crest, a unique piece, crafted for his wife, and then for Lily. He had given it to Lily on her 5th birthday, just months before she disappeared. He had searched for it, desperately, among her belongings. But it had been gone. The butcher lunged, a terrifying blur of violence. But just as he reached her, Richard and Marcus's team burst into the room, their weapons raised. The confrontation was swift and brutal. The butcher, caught off guard, fought with savage desperation, but he was outnumbered and outmaneuvered. His hands trembled as he pulled it out, the cool metal a shocking reality against his skin. He opened it, his fingers fumbling. Inside, 2 faded photographs, his wife, his beloved Eleanor, and a tiny, smiling Lily. His vision blurred. Tears, hot and unexpected, stinging his eyes. This wasn't just a locket. This was hers. In a tense, dramatic struggle, Marcus finally subdued him, pinning him to the ground. Richard rushed to Elena, pulling her into a fierce embrace. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice thick with relief. Then, he saw the small, folded note tucked inside. His heart pounded, a frantic drum against his ribs. He unfolded it, his eyes scanning the shaky, urgent handwriting. Elena nodded, shaken but unharmed. She looked at the butcher, now bound and defeated. Then at Richard, her eyes filled with a shared understanding. They had faced the direct threat, and they had won. Lily Sterling is safe. I have her. She is the missing heiress. Look for the locket. Do not contact police. They are compromised. Call this number. I need to speak to Richard Sterling only. Trust no one else. This direct confrontation, this moment of shared danger, solidified their bond in an unbreakable way. Richard had witnessed Elena's unwavering courage, her willingness to put herself in harm's way for the greater good. Elena had seen Richard's fierce protectiveness, his willingness to fight alongside her. Their relationship, born of gratitude and respect, now burned with a deep, undeniable love, forged in the fires of adversity and shared triumph. The ultimate confrontation with Madame X was still to come, but now they faced it as one, an unbreakable force against the darkness. The words hit him like a physical blow, a bolt of lightning piercing the darkness of his despair. Lily is safe. I have her. Hope, a feeling he had long since buried, surged through him, so powerful it almost knocked him off his feet. But it was quickly followed by a chilling realization. Do not contact police. They are compromised. Trust no one else. The capture of the butcher was a significant victory, a tangible blow against Madame X's network, and a testament to Elena's unwavering courage. The direct confrontation, the shared moment of peril, had solidified the bond between Elena and Richard in an unbreakable way. They had faced a formidable threat together, and they had emerged stronger, their partnership now burning with a deep, undeniable love. But the war was far from over. Madame X, the shadowy puppet master, was still at large, and the chilling video of the trapped children was a constant, agonizing reminder of the lives still hanging in the balance. His own security, the men who had just been in his office, claiming to search for clues, the suspicion that had gnawed at him for months, the feeling that some leads were being deliberately suppressed, suddenly coalesced into a terrifying truth. His own people, perhaps even those within his inner circle, could be compromised. In the aftermath of the butcher's capture, Richard's estate became an even more fortified command center. The intelligence extracted from the butcher, combined with Elena's unparalleled insights and Richard's vast resources, began to paint a comprehensive, horrifying picture of Madame X's entire operation. They discovered her primary hub, a seemingly legitimate international charity organization that served as a front for her global trafficking ring. This was her true lair, hidden in plain sight, meticulously protected by layers of legal and financial deception. Richard stared at the burner phone number, his mind racing. This was not a hoax. The locket was irrefutable proof. And the warning, it felt chillingly authentic. He had to act, and he had to act alone, with extreme caution. Elena found herself working tirelessly alongside Richard and Marcus. Her ability to recall minute details, her intuitive understanding of the victim's psychology, and her unwavering empathy made her an invaluable asset. She helped the team piece together fragmented clues, identifying key routes, deciphering coded messages, and even recognizing subtle nuances in the traffickers' communication patterns that only someone who had observed them from the shadows, as she had, could truly grasp. She was no longer just a cleaner, she was a brilliant, compassionate strategist, driven by a powerful sense of justice. He reached for his secure, untraceable satellite phone, a device he used only for the most sensitive, confidential communications. His hands, usually so steady, trembled as he dialed the number on the note. Every second felt like an eternity. The fate of his daughter, the last flicker of hope in his desolate life, hung in the balance. Richard watched her with profound admiration. He saw her exhaustion, the shadows under her eyes, but also the fierce determination that burned within her. He saw how she would spend hours comforting Lily, coaxing out more memories, then turn immediately to the cold, hard facts of the investigation, her mind sharp and focused. His love for her deepened with every passing moment, a quiet, powerful force that anchored him amidst the darkness of their mission. He realized that Elena wasn't just the woman who had brought his daughter back. She was the woman who had brought purpose and light back into his own life. The phone rang once, twice, then a soft, hesitant voice answered. A woman's voice. Hello. Their shared purpose, the desperate need to save the children, drew them closer than any conventional romance ever could. Late into the nights, after Lily was asleep and the command center was quiet, Elena and Richard would sit together, discussing strategies, analyzing data, but also simply talking. They spoke of their fears, their hopes, their shared vision for a world where no child would ever suffer as Lily had. In those moments, the billionaire CEO and the former cleaner were simply two souls, united by a common cause, their hearts beating as one. Is this the person who left the note? Richard asked, his voice hoarse with emotion, barely recognizable even to himself. We're close, Elena, Richard said one night, his voice low, filled with a mix of grim satisfaction and anticipation. He pointed to a complex digital map on a large screen, highlighting a specific location in a bustling international city. This is it, her main hub. The intelligence is solid. We have enough to move. Yes, Elena replied, her voice a fragile whisper, but firm. Do you have the locket? Elena looked at the highlighted location, a knot of apprehension and resolve tightening in her stomach. This was the moment, the culmination of months of relentless work, of terrifying risks, of unwavering hope. This was where they would finally confront Madame X. Yes, Richard confirmed, clutching the locket in his free hand. Who are you? And where is my daughter? His voice cracked with the raw emotion he had suppressed for 2 long years. But Madame X, isolated and increasingly desperate, was a master of manipulation. She knew her network was crumbling, and she suspected Richard Sterling's direct involvement. Her final, most insidious move was not a physical attack, but a psychological one, aimed at Elena. "My name is Elena," she said, her voice gaining a quiet strength. "And Lily is safe. She's with me. But we're in danger. The people who took her, they're still looking, and they know I helped her. We need to meet discreetly, and you must come alone. Trust no one else, Mr. Sterling. No one." A few days before the planned raid, Elena received a chilling, untraceable video message. It wasn't from Madame X directly, but from one of her remaining loyalists, a distorted voice taunting Elena. The video showed Lily, alone in a room within the Sterling mansion, her back to the camera. The voice then threatened to reveal Lily's location to the public, to expose her trauma to the world, to turn her into a media circus. If Elena didn't back down, the threat was designed to break Elena's spirit, to force her to choose between Lily's privacy and the mission to save other children. Richard closed his eyes, a single tear tracing a path down his weathered cheek. Lily was alive. Lily was safe. The despair that had consumed him for so long began to recede, replaced by a fierce, burning resolve. He would move heaven and earth to get his daughter back. And he would trust this stranger, this Elena, who had risked everything to bring him the most precious message of his life. His fate, and Lily's, had just flipped overnight, all thanks to a kind cleaner and a tiny, invaluable locket. Elena watched the video, her face paling, her hands trembling. The thought of Lily's fragile recovery being shattered, of her innocent face plastered across tabloids, was a cruel, agonizing blow. She knew Madame X was capable of anything. The burner phone, clutched in Elena's trembling hand, felt like a fragile bridge over a chasm of terrifying unknowns. She had the number, the direct line to Richard Sterling, the billionaire father of the child sleeping fitfully beside her. But the warning echoed in her mind. Do not contact police. They are compromised. Trust no one else. This wasn't just about making a call. It was about navigating a treacherous landscape where even the most powerful institutions could be infiltrated. Elena, a woman who had spent her life avoiding attention, was about to step onto the world stage, holding a secret that could either save Lily or destroy them both. Richard found her, staring blankly at the screen, the video still playing on a loop. He immediately understood the depth of the threat. "She's trying to break you, Elena," he said, his voice grim. "To make you choose." She knew she couldn't simply call him and blurt out the truth. A man of Richard Sterling's stature would be bombarded with hoaxes, scams, and desperate pleas. She needed to be precise, to offer just enough proof to pique his interest, but not so much that the information could be intercepted or dismissed. The locket was her strongest card, but she couldn't risk sending it through any public means. Elena looked at him, her eyes filled with a desperate anguish. "I can't let her hurt Lily again. Richard, not like that. But I can't abandon those other children either. What do we do?" The weight of the choice was crushing. Elena spent another sleepless night. Formulating her strategy, she decided on a series of cryptic, untraceable messages, designed to be just intriguing enough for a man desperate for any lead on his missing daughter. She would use the burner phone, changing SIM cards after each message. A trick she'd learned from a gritty crime drama she occasionally watched to escape her own reality. Richard pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "We don't choose, Elena," he murmured, his voice firm. "We fight for both. We protect Lily, and we save those children. We expose Madame X for the monster she is, and we ensure she can never threaten anyone again." Her first message was simple, direct, and designed to hit him where his grief was most raw. She knew from the news articles that Lily had been missing for 2 years, and that hope was fading. He then revealed his counter-strategy, a daring plan he had been developing in secret, anticipating Madame X's final, desperate move. He had already put measures in place to secure Lily's privacy, to control any potential media leaks. And he had a plan to use Madame X's own desperate threat against her, to lure her into a final, inescapable trap. The text message, sent at an odd hour, simply read, "Lily is alive. She is safe. I have proof only you would recognize." Elena listened, her fear slowly giving way to a renewed sense of resolve. Richard's brilliance, his unwavering determination, and his absolute commitment to protecting both her and Lily filled her with a powerful sense of hope. They were an unbreakable force, two halves of a whole, united in their purpose. Elena waited, her heart pounding. Hours stretched into an eternity. She imagined Richard Sterling receiving the message, his initial skepticism, the flicker of a long-buried hope. Would he dismiss it? Would he think it was another cruel hoax? The stage was set for the ultimate confrontation. The raid on Madame X's hub was imminent. The stakes were higher than ever, with Lily's privacy and the lives of countless children hanging in the balance. But Elena and Richard, their bond forged in the fires of adversity and their love deepened by shared purpose, faced the darkness as one. They were ready to bring down the monster, once and for all, and usher in a new dawn of justice and hope. Finally, the burner phone vibrated. A reply. Elena snatched it up, her fingers trembling. The message was short, sharp, and wary. Who is this? What proof? The raid on Madame X's international hub was a meticulously planned operation. Executed with precision and overwhelming force, Richard Sterling's private security, working in seamless coordination with a select, untainted unit of international law enforcement, descended upon the seemingly legitimate charity organization. The element of surprise, combined with the comprehensive intelligence gathered by Elena and Marcus's team, ensured a swift and decisive victory. This was it. He was intrigued. Elena composed her next message carefully, choosing her words with meticulous precision. She couldn't reveal too much, but she had to offer something undeniable. Elena, despite Richard's insistence that she remain safe at the estate, had refused. Her place, she argued, was on the front lines, to bear witness, and to ensure every child was rescued. She wore a discreet earpiece, connected to Richard and Marcus, and moved with a quiet determination, her eyes scanning every corner, searching for the terrified faces she had seen in Madame X's chilling video. The locket, the eagle and the esso, it's with her. She remembers the big house and the swing. The scene inside the hub was horrifying, yet Elena faced it with unwavering resolve. Children, many of them malnourished and traumatized, were found hidden in various rooms, their eyes wide with fear. But amidst the chaos, there was also overwhelming relief as the rescuers moved in, their voices gentle, their hands offering comfort. Elena was at the forefront, her presence a beacon of hope for the terrified children. She spoke to them in soft whispers, her touch gentle, reassuring them that they were finally safe. She sent it, then immediately removed the SIM card, replacing it with a new one. This was the crucial test. The locket was unique, a private family heirloom. The details about the big house and the swing were fragmented memories only Lily herself would recall, and only her family would understand. If he truly believed, he would know this was no ordinary hoax. Madame X, the elusive puppet master, was found in a hidden, fortified office, surrounded by screens displaying her global operations. She was a woman of cold, calculating composure, her eyes devoid of remorse. Even as her empire crumbled around her, Richard confronted her directly, his voice laced with a righteous fury. He laid bare her crimes, the countless lives she had destroyed, the innocence she had stolen. Madame X, for the first time, showed a flicker of something akin to fear, a chilling realization that her reign of terror was truly over. She was apprehended, her vast network dismantled, her power utterly shattered. The wait for the next reply was agonizing. Elena paced her tiny apartment, Lily's soft breathing the only sound in the oppressive silence. She imagined Richard Sterling, a man of immense power, now grappling with a message that defied all logic, yet resonated with the deepest chambers of his grieving heart. In the aftermath of the raid, the rescued children were immediately taken to safe houses, where they received medical attention, psychological support, and the first taste of true kindness they had known in years. Elena spent countless hours with them, her heart aching for their suffering, yet swelling with hope for their future. She helped them articulate their experiences, providing crucial testimony that would ensure Madame X and her accomplices faced the full force of justice. Meanwhile, in his sprawling, silent mansion, Richard Sterling stood by his office window, the burner phone clutched in his hand. The first message had been a cruel jolt, a flicker of hope he had long since extinguished. He had received countless hoaxes, countless false leads, each one a fresh stab of pain. But the second message? The locket, the eagle and the S, it's with her. She remembers the big house. And the swing. Lily, safe at home, watched the news reports with a quiet understanding, her hand often reaching for Elena's. She knew, instinctively, that Elena was fighting for children just like her, for a world where no one would suffer as she had. Her healing journey continued, marked by slow, steady progress, her laughter becoming more frequent, her nightmares less intense. She was thriving, a testament to the power of love and resilience. His mind reeled. The locket. He had given it to Lily himself. It was a one-of-a-kind piece, a family crest. And the details about the house, the swing, those were intimate memories, known only to him and Lily. No hoaxer could possibly know such things. A raw, visceral hope surged through him, so powerful it almost brought him to his knees. Richard Sterling, witnessing Elena's unwavering dedication, her boundless compassion, and her profound impact on the rescued children, knew, with absolute certainty, that his life had been irrevocably changed. He saw in Elena not just a hero, but a partner, a soulmate. His immense wealth, once a source of hollow power, now felt meaningful, purposeful, when shared with her. But the warning still echoed. Do not contact police. They are compromised. Trust no one else. The chilling implication that his own security, his own trusted network, might be infiltrated, now felt terrifyingly real. He had felt it, a vague unease, a sense that something was off with the investigation, but he had dismissed it as paranoia born of grief. Now, it was a stark, undeniable truth. Their relationship, forged in the crucible of shared adversity and a common and noble purpose, deepened into an unbreakable bond. Richard, the billionaire CEO, and Elena, the former cleaner, found a love that transcended social status, wealth, or background. It was a love built on mutual respect, unwavering trust, and a shared commitment to making the world a better place. He dialed the burner phone number, his hands shaking. Elena answered. Richard proposed to Elena in the quiet intimacy of their Willow Creek cottage, the place where their extraordinary journey had begun. It wasn't a grand public spectacle, but a heartfelt, sincere declaration of love. Elena, her eyes brimming with tears, accepted, her heart overflowing with a happiness she had never dared to dream of. My daughter, Richard choked out, his voice raw with emotion. You have my daughter. Is she truly safe? Their wedding was a private affair, attended only by Lily, Marcus, and a few trusted individuals who had witnessed their incredible journey. It was a celebration of love, resilience, and the extraordinary way fate had flipped their lives overnight. Yes. Mr. Sterling, Elena's voice replied, quiet but firm. She is safe. She's with me. But we need to meet, discreetly. And you must come alone. No one else. Not your security, not your police contacts. No one. The people who took her are still looking. And they know I helped her. In the years that followed, Elena, no longer a cleaner, became the driving force behind the Sterling Foundation's expanded mission, a global initiative dedicated to combating human trafficking, rescuing victims, and providing comprehensive support for their recovery. She worked tirelessly, using her unique insights and her compassionate heart to make a tangible difference in the lives of countless children. Richard, by her side, provided unwavering support, his vast resources now channeled into a cause that truly mattered. Richard's mind raced. The risks were immense. This woman was an unknown. She could be a trap, a new layer of the nightmare, but the locket, the memories, the desperate conviction in her voice. He had to trust her. He had to take this chance. It was his only chance. Lily grew into a bright, confident young woman, a testament to the power of healing and the enduring love of her father and Elena. She often accompanied Elena on visits to the Foundation's centers. Her own story, a powerful message of hope and survival. Tell me where, Richard said, his voice regaining some of its usual authority, though still laced with desperation. I will come, alone, anywhere, anytime. Elena and Richard built a life together, a family founded on compassion, integrity, and a shared purpose. They proved that true worth is not measured by wealth or status, but by the kindness in one's heart, the courage in one's spirit, and the unwavering commitment to justice. Their story, an extraordinary tale of an unlikely hero and a grieving father, became a beacon of hope, a testament to the idea that even in the darkest shadows, a single act of kindness can flip fate overnight, leading to a future of boundless purpose and profound love. Elena gave him an address, a small, abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, a place she knew was rarely frequented. A perfect spot for a clandestine meeting. She gave him precise instructions: come at midnight, drive an unmarked car, and if he saw anyone else, he was to leave immediately. She emphasized the need for absolute secrecy, for his own safety and, more importantly, for Lily's. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Stay with us for the next one. And while you're here, check out our other videos. There's always more to explore. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below. Richard agreed, his heart pounding with a mix of terror and exhilarating hope. He would go. He would face any danger, take any risk, to get his daughter back. He spent the rest of the day in a blur, making arrangements, ensuring no one suspected his true intentions. He told his staff he was taking a private flight for an urgent, confidential business matter, fabricating a destination far from the city. He left his usual security detail behind, a terrifying act of defiance against his own corrupted network.